This is Shootin the Sith. I'm Robert Slavinsky. Now let's get into some Star Wars talk. Alright, so today what I want to discuss is the final few episodes of Clone Wars Season 7, also known as the Siege of Mandalore. Now the reason why I want to talk about this is, well, there's really not much to go and talk about with Star Wars right now. I mean, we got a bunch of stuff being made, just nothing's out. But I want to talk about these last few episodes of that. Now, these came out last year in 2019 or 2020? Ah, man, I can't remember. COVID year has totally screwed me up in knowing when things have come out. But regardless, I want to talk about this because, you know, I'm sitting there watching this the other day, and it hits me with how great The Mandalorian has been. Season 1, Season 2, fantastic Star Wars content, great television show to just really give us what we've been craving for the last, 10, 15 years or so. But as I'm rewatching The Siege of Mandalore, these last episodes of Season 7 of the Clone Wars, I gotta tell you, it is without a doubt, hands down, the best Star Wars content that we have gotten since 2005 when Revenge of the Sith released. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be sitting there and saying, oh, you're crazy, the sequel trilogy, blah, 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 this and that, Force Awakens, Last Jedi, blah, 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 all that. Look, you can be mad at me all you want, but thinking realistically, thinking logically, thinking like a Star Wars fan should, a fan of what George Lucas was creating, not what Disney created, but what George Lucas had built prior to selling to Disney. Those last few episodes of the Clone Wars is quite possibly the most George Lucas Star Wars that we have gotten without George Lucas. It just encapsulates everything, all the emotion, all of the story, the poetry, the entirety of what George was building with the 6 movies that he was part of. 7 if you want to count the Clone Wars animated movie. It encapsulates everything, and what they were able to do in giving us this finality of the prequel era, because that's really what this did. It gave us this finality of, okay, look, you have learned and seen everything that you've needed to see and learn when it comes to the prequel era. You wanted to know what happened with Ahsoka. You wanted to know what happened with Maul. You want to know what happened with Rex. Here you go. It's all right here. And it does it so beautifully and almost to perfection that you can't sit there and say that it isn't the Star Wars that we've all been wanting and has desired for the last 10, 15 years or more. And 16 years at this point, if you're considering the Revenge of the Sith the last really good bit of Star Wars. Again, it's not to take anything away from The Mandalorian. Again, that has been fantastic. But when you sit back and really think about it, I mean, Rebels was great. I really enjoyed that show. I loved the way it connected the two eras together, because it seems like that's what the animation is doing, is it's kind of filling in the gaps of what's going on in certain eras of Star Wars. And while Clone Wars really did a good job prior to that final season and really showing us the relationship of Anakin and Obi-Wan and seeing that friendship, so when we watch Revenge of the Sith, that brotherhood, that betrayal hits a lot harder. The final episodes of Clone Wars gives you even more emotion in regards to what Ahsoka went through. you even get a little bit more of Obi-Wan. Like, there's that scene that's in part 2, which to me, I think is one of the best scenes in the entirety of the series, but it's so short, and it's a little piece where Ahsoka is conversing with Obi-Wan, and they're discussing how Darth or Maul talks of Darth Sidious. And there's that moment where Obi-Wan's, I want to talk to Ahsoka alone, so he can tell her what's going on with Anakin and how he has been tasked with spying on the Chancellor. And you can tell in that moment the amount of love and admiration and care that Ahsoka has for her former master. You then jump to Rebels and rewatch the duel between Vader and Ahsoka when she says, I will not let you down, I will save you, I won't leave you this time, or whatever she says. I think that's what, I will not leave you. It's like that moment in the Clone Wars, and I know I've discussed this, I know many other people have discussed this, but it just hits so well, because had it not been for Maul and interrupting that conversation with her and Obi-Wan could have and may have convinced her to reach out to Anakin prior to the events of what happened in Revenge of the Sith, where he turns on the Jedi. And could Ahsoka have been that person to be able to pull him back and say, look, I understand you don't want to do this, but there's something else going on. Maul explained to me this and this. Could that have changed his perspective? Could that have pushed him in a different direction? Now, obviously, we know the story was never going to go that route, but to see that there's these other possibilities that could have happened in that world just adds a level to the entirety of the saga. And it's just beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And I don't get why so many people don't give this enough credit, because I don't know why people aren't talking about this more. It's just been phenomenal, and I'm so excited. My son, my young son, which he just turned 10 today, so happy birthday, buddy, if you're watching this. But he started watching Clone Wars, and I'm so interested to see his journey through it, through his eyes, because I was, when Clone Wars came out, I was 21 years old, or older than that, maybe, I don't remember when it came, 2008, so maybe 23, 24. But when it came out, I was, it's an animated Star Wars show, I'm going to watch it, and I did, I watched it here and there. It wasn't until much later, in 2012, 2013, after the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, that I actually sat down and really dove into it. So I was in my, how old was I at that point? Late 20s? Mid to late 20s? I want to see how my son, through 10-year-old eyes, watches this show, and then how a moment like that will impact him. And then I'm going to watch him watch Rebels, and I want to see how the connections start to impact him. That is just the beauty of Dave Filoni, and I think maybe this episode should be just a love letter to Dave Filoni, and saying thank you so much for what you've done for Star Wars over these last 10 years or so, give or take a few years, in staying true to what George Lucas was creating and not falling victim to the same issues and problems that the sequel trilogy fell into, to stay relevant in today's political climate and the Hollywood, structure, because that's really what happened with the sequel trilogy. Those movies weren't about a story. They were not made to tell a story about a hero. Yes, that is in those films, and it is there. But throughout those movies, there was so much that was just submitted into them, whether it's political correctness, very progressive thinking, whatever you want to say it is, or, even attacks on the idea of a tyrannical, government and leader. However you want to look at it, left or right, political-wise, those are there. Those political, and I'm not even going to say undertones, because they're very much in your face. And that's not what Star Wars was. Star Trek was about pushing the bar and being progressive. That's what pushed Star Trek on put on the map. But Star Wars wasn't about that. Now, while Star Wars did have a political undertone in it, and while it really, kind of put a bit of a magnifying glass on, some world views and everything, that's not what it was about. It was not about making sure that everybody was included, because that's not Star Wars, because everybody's already included in Star Wars. That was the point of all the different aliens and species and everything being as one populace of this galaxy, is everybody's included. Now, a bunch of you are probably going to freak out if you're watching this and say, oh, look, blah, 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 he's saying this. But no, look, what you have to understand is the sequel trilogy works for some people. I had high hopes. The Force Awakens I really enjoyed, and it fell flat for me after that. But it works for some, and that's fine. If it pulls people in, my kids love Kylo Ren, great, it pulls them into Star Wars. But there's no denying that what Dave Filoni has done with the Clone Wars, what he did with Rebels, how he helped Jon Favreau along the way with The Mandalorian, and what it looks like he'll be doing with Ahsoka, and everything else, there's no denying that he has kept true to what George Lucas was creating and making. And that's what we as fans need to keep wanting. That's what we need to hope that they understand and continue making. Because that's what Star Wars is.
Do you listen to podcasts that sound like this? Hey, welcome back to the Super OK Podcast, where our audio sounds mediocre.
Or do you prefer podcasts that sound more like this? Crisp, clear, fun, easy to listen to, and full of awesomeness? Well, then you should check out Spoiler Country, hosted exclusively over at Spoilerverse.com.
It's going to be interesting to see how things move forward, with you want to call it a success of the sequel trilogy, some want to call it a failure of the sequel trilogy. Critically, and the reception of the sequel trilogy has dropped, month after month, year after year since it started. Financially, it's a success. I mean, it made, $3 billion, $4 billion, $5 billion, something like that. It made a shit ton of money at the box office. But when you get down and dirty, it's the least Star Wars that we've gotten in this Disney era of Star Wars. Because the two men who probably could and should have been at the front of pushing these movies and creating these movies just weren't there. And that's the problem. That's the problem. This isn't a debate to say bring George Lucas back, and I'm not even saying Dave Filoni has to be involved with every single thing that is Star Wars. But what I think is they need to get creative minds in there that understand Star Wars, like a Dave Filoni, like a Jon Favreau, to understand that it's not about the current political climate or statuses in Hollywood or, progressiveness. That's not what Star Wars is. You need to get back to its roots of being what Star Wars is about, and it's the hero's journey. It's about, in a very childish way, it is about a mystical, force, the Force, and about just people living in this galaxy dealing with these tyrannical rulers and these kind of superpowered beings that would be known as Force users in a way. That's what it boils down to at the very basic level. And if you lose that, you start to lose the identity of what Star Wars is, and you get The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. Again, I'm not going to throw The Force Awakens in there because I truly believe that they were on the right path there. But at some point during the writing process, creating that movie, they lost their way. I don't understand why, how, or what happened, what have you. But they lost their way, definitely by episode 8. But let me know what your thoughts are. This kind of turned into a little bit of a love letter to Dave Filoni, who, you know, I got to give him credit. I mean, he's from Pittsburgh. He's from my hometown. You know, great guy. I hope one day to actually talk to him, to get a chance to sit down and just pick his brain a little bit about his process. Not so much as, you know, I mean, obviously I would love to hear what he has going, but I just want to know what his process is. I want to know how he got to being where he was, and how, you know, just all that. So that is a lofty goal for me, is to maybe get an interview with him one time. That'd be great to have. But, you know, I'd love to see what he thinks of Star Wars even right now, especially when it comes to the film side. You know, and he's just a brilliant guy, and he should have been the rightful man to move forward after George Lucas was wiping his hands clean. But it is what it is, and we got to move forward and hope for the best, right? Right. But guys, if you haven't, or if you did watch it, even when it first came out, I encourage you all to go back and rewatch those last few episodes of Season 7 of the Clone Wars, the Siege of Mandalore arc, because I'm telling you, you know, to go back and just watch those episodes, it's an adventure. It is a movie in itself. It is, you sit there, you watch them back to back to back, and by the time you're done, you're just like, wow. It's impactful. That is what they were capable and able to do in that. Just animation. That's insane what they did with that. I'm now looking at jumping back into Rebels. I think I'm going to go through Rebels again. Definitely season 2 and 3. I think those are the highlights in the final season. With 2, 3, 5, I think are the highlights of that series for sure. But let me know your thoughts on the current status of Star Wars. What your thoughts are on where everything is. What you think the best Star Wars content has been since 2005. I want to know your thoughts on that. That's a great question, guys. What has been the one thing that, you know, has felt the most Star Wars, has felt the most connection to what George Lucas was building to you since 2005? With all that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. And please, 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 please make sure you check out Spoilerverse.com for so much more when it comes to the pulp culture world and podcasts. There's also not even just pop culture. We got stuff like Misery Point Radio, which is music-based. And we got so much more coming out. You know, check out the show Spoiler Country. That is our flagship show over there at Spoilerverse. They do some great interviews with some great people. I did one a couple, about 16 months ago, with Kevin Kiner, who is the composer of the Clone Wars. So I got to actually sit down and talk with him and ask him some questions, pick his brain about his process and how he got into composing Star Wars. It's a great interview. I encourage you all to check it out. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.